Are we live?
I see you guys on the Facebook page, so I think we are good to go.
Thank you. Okay, I will call this meeting to order and welcome everyone. And I'm sorry it takes us so long with all the glitches, but at least we're all in now. So welcome everybody. Does anyone have any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general need? I'm sorry, we have an addendum to the agenda first. I have to do that first. We'll do that. Diane will read it.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Kravitz, that Council approve the addendum to the agenda for Monday, May the 25th, 2020, being correspondence action item number 1, cannabis cultivation operation, St. Thomas Airport.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Diane to call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks? Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Now I will ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Hearing none, we have no delegations. So our first one is correspondence for action. Do you have a motion to read? Pardon me? I'm sorry, we have to adopt the minutes first. I skipped the minutes. So would you read the motion, Diane, please?
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Fair, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Council dated Monday, May the 11th, 2020 be adopted.
Oh, does anyone have any questions or concerns? If not, call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin? The motion carries.
And now we're moving to this addendum, which was correspondence for action. Do we have a motion for that one? All right, I'm going to ask Diane to read the motion and then we'll talk about it.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that correspondence received from the City of St. Thomas dated May the 15th, 2020, correspondence received from Steve Harris regarding cannabis cultivation operation at the St. Thomas Municipal Airport be received as information, and further that Council direct staff to contact the City of St. Thomas to confirm a date for the requested meeting between the City, Central Elgin, the producer, and the residents.
Questions or comments? If not, call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Councillor Fair? Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Several areas that we have concerns with that we'll be able to discuss with them, and hopefully that can be set up soon as the growing season is coming. All right, the next are motion on the correspondence for information.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Fair, that correspondence items number 1 through number 5 inclusive be received as information and filed.
Does anyone have any they'd like to have removed out to support?
Bill Fair.
Yes, Bill?
I would like 3 taken out to support. And I guess if you don't support something, then you just leave it in there. Is that correct? That was in regards to 5.
Yeah. We're receiving it as information if we're not doing any action on it. We're just asking you, you would like number 3, that we would endorse that.
Correct.
Does anyone else have any that they would like to remove? I'd like, just on 5, we actually, as a county, the County of Elgin offered to be one of the pilot projects for this universal basic income. We weren't chosen. They chose 3 areas, and actually the current government actually said they were going to continue it, but then they canceled it as soon as they were in power. So it's still an interesting concept, but it's just for information at the moment. So at the moment, then everyone wants 1, 2, 4, and 5 left as for information.
Mayor Martin?
Yes, go ahead, Colleen.
Yes, it's back in February, we endorsed something very similar. So it's kind of like some of those other ones that kept coming around. Do we need to, is there anything different in this one that's different from that prior one that would require a new endorsement?
Mr. Leach, do you see anything different? I don't.
Okay. Yeah, Madam Mayor, no, I don't.
Number 5, correct?
I thought she was talking about number 3.
Okay, Colleen, was it number 3 you were talking about?
Yes, Ernie Hardeman's letter. I have
Okay.
no trouble endorsing it again. It's just, we get in that loop typically. So it's just, do we do them once, twice, 3 times, or how many?
I was just suggesting it to make it a real strong motion.
I think it's a vote of confidence for our farmers.
Anyone else have any comments?
I just comment, I agree with Colleen. We did already support this motion once, but I agree with Bill. I do support it as well, but I don't think we need to endorse it again and again. So I don't think we need to do that twice. Thank you.
It's from the county, this one is? What the county supported and endorsed, and it's just that we would support and endorse as well as the county. So they sent it out to all the lower tier municipalities.
And in my opinion, I would say to give it strength, I would say maybe we could endorse this one also.
Not so sure. Can you hear me, Madam Mayor?
Yes, I
Okay.
can, Tom.
My volume keeps going on and off, but I strongly agree with Councillor Fair. Good message to our farmers.
We have 2 councillors questioning it. Fiona, would you like to speak?
I agree with Councillor Fair and Deputy Mayor Marks. Actually, I don't see a problem this time with this one, just giving it an extra boost and supporting it again.
Councillor Kravitz and Councillor Rowe, are you okay with that if we go ahead?
Oh, yes, I definitely support this if we vote on it.
Yes, I absolutely support it. I was merely asking a question.
Agree. Okay, I'll ask Diane to read the motion then, or no, we have to do the others we have to do the 4 for information only, and that's what you'll be voting on right now. Diane will call the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've amended the motion to exclude number 3 from the main motion. So I'll take the recorded vote. Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The motion carries, Your Worship.
I'll read the motion to endorse number 3, please.
Just for clarification, I understand Councillor Fair was moving the motion. I don't believe I caught the name of the seconder, Your Worship.
I'll second it. Fiona.
Thank you, Fiona.
The motion reads, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that correspondence sent from the County of Elgin to the Honourable Ernie Hardeman supporting Bill 156 be endorsed.
Vote, please.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The motion carries.
We're now moving into reports in the Central Elgin Planning Office. The first one would you like to read the motion, please?
Madam Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report CEP 2220 be received as information, and that direction be given by Council to prepare a site-specific draft amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit a 117 square meter, 1,260 square foot garden suite on lands which may be legally described as concession for part of Lot 11 Geographic Township of Yarmouth, now Municipality of Central Elgin, and further that a date for a public meeting be scheduled in accordance with Ontario Regulation 54506 as amended.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns? We do have Kevin to answer them if you do. Hearing none, I'll ask Diane to call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin. The motion carries.
We'll move on to CEP 2320, the application to remove the holding zone. Go ahead and read the motion.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report CEP 2320 be received as information, and that the application by 1991321 Ontario Inc. for an amendment to the Village of Port Stanley Bylaw 1507 as amended to remove the holding symbol from the Little Creek West Now Landing subdivision file number 34T CE 1901, legally described as part of lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, part of Amelia Street, registered plan number 20, all of blocks 61 and 62, part of block 63, registered plan number 11M31 in the municipality of Central Elgin be approved, and further that notice of council's intention to pass an amending bylaw to remove a holding symbol from a zoning bylaw be given pursuant to Ontario Regulation 54506.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Kravitz?
I just was wondering if Lloyd could give a brief update on the progress of this subdivision.
Mr. Perrin?
Just in regards to the servicing of it. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Kravitz. So the developer has engaged the services of a contractor. We had a pre-construction meeting last week. It's our understanding that the contractor will mobilize at the end of this week and start on-site servicing of the new development internal to the subdivision starting on Monday. They'll do all the underground work internal to the subdivision for municipal horizontal services, so storm drainage systems, sanitary sewers, water main. And then once that's completed, they will then move out onto Larry Street. And that will allow that internal street to be turned over to the utility companies, Hydro, Gas, Bell, and Rogers, so they can do their work while the contractor's out installing sanitary sewers and some minor storm sewer work on Larry Street, Hill, and High Street. So the intent is, depending on weather and schedule, restoration of Larry Hill and High Street should be around the middle to end of September.
Okay, thank you. I had a few people asking about subdivision, so thank you, Luke.
Any other questions?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. So within the next couple of weeks, all the existing residents on Larry Hill and High Street will receive some notification in cooperation between the municipality as well as the consulting engineer, and to locate their proposed sanitary services for the existing homes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Diane to call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Moving on now to the CAO 0820, the Port Stanley BIA budget. Would you read the motion?
The motion reads, Mayor Martin, moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report CO 0820 2020 BIA budget be received as information, and that Council approve rescinding the 2020 BIA budget being bylaw 2466, and further that Council direct staff to prepare a bylaw to rescind bylaw 2466 at their next regular meeting of Council dated June the 8th, 2020.
Have any questions or concerns about this? Hearing none, I'm going to ask Diane to call the vote.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks,
Yes.
Councillor Roberts,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
and Mayor Martin. The motion carries.
Thank you. We're now moving on to CAO 0920, impact of COVID-19 response measures. Mr. Leach, we'll probably read the motion and then no? Okay, we're looking for direction, so I'm going to ask Mr. Leach, do you have anything you want to say on this?
Madam Mayor, staff are looking for direction on from council on the measures that we've taken to date with COVID-19. Most of those measures that we have taken around delays in due dates for both water, wastewater, and property tax installments, reduced interest rates, no shutoffs for water, wastewater for unpaid bills. Most of those measures, actually all those measures, will expire sometime in June. So we're looking for direction from council whether council wishes to continue any of those beyond the June date. As well, the report suggests some other things that council may want to consider, not necessarily because staff are recommending them, but because there are comments that we're picking up in the community, and certainly you're probably picking up in the community. The first is the water and wastewater rate study. Staff can venture to say that based on a preliminary look at the rates, there's no capacity for us to adjust the rates downward, that we are doing a deep dive into the rates, and we'll be meeting with staff with Carrie Scanlon, who was involved in the last rate study, to understand some of the projections, but we do not see any opportunity that for lowering rates. Essentially, if you try to lower rates now, then you basically have to make up the difference. So you just get a bigger increase in subsequent years. The other item is regarding garbage bag tags, that there's been some comments about a garbage bag tag holiday or ideas like that. So we've just brought that out. So council is aware of that. If you haven't had that discussion with any of the citizens, if there was any direction about that. And then the final piece was just to go over the strategic plan that council adopted last year and identify those parts of the plan where there's a delay in the timing due to COVID. So that's indicated in the plan in red text, just for council's information. So what we're looking for tonight from council is direction on extending any kind of particular measures for COVID relief beyond June. I guess we can also say that at this point, we're not aware of what any other municipalities are doing beyond June as well, that we have been involved in some intermunicipal meetings around Elgin and other places, and there isn't a pattern about what's going to happen beyond June at this time.
We can take this step by step, and I think the first thing would be to look at these things that we delayed as far as payments for water bills and wastewater and taxes. They're June 15th, they will be coming due. Do we want to extend that beyond June the 15th? I think that's probably our first question to consider.
Bill Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think that first I'm saying I believe that we should probably extend it to the July one. I did participate in the virtual meeting with Jeff Urick, Minister of Environment, and also Karen Vecchio. I did ask the question of Mr. Urick, what, if any, we were going to get some relief for municipalities, because as everyone knows, we can't run a deficit. And he said that that was a high priority on the Minister of Municipal Affairs right now. They're dealing with it. So after hearing what Jeff had to say, that there could possibly be relief, or the very least they're looking at it, I would think maybe another month, because June 15th is only another roughly 2 weeks. So I would suggest possibly till July 15th. But I would also want everyone to know that the minister is looking very strongly at municipal aid.
Mr. Fair, other comments?
Mayor Martin?
Go ahead, Colleen.
I was just curious if there was any indication so far whether we have the numbers for how many have been delayed to date at all for any one of those three payments, or how far behind we are.
Ramona, do you have any idea how many have been delayed?
Yes, I provided that at a previous meeting, that we were down about 3% so far, but we can't actually say how many are not paying by the due date when the due date hasn't happened yet. So we have to wait until after June 15th before we can provide you with good numbers.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Tom.
I can support Councillor Fair. I think another month we'll have probably better idea where we are and what the rest of the province is doing as well. So I think that would be prudent.
Any other comments from anyone else on this one?
Dennis.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I also support one more month extension on the penalty and interest charges at this point, since a lot hasn't changed with the COVID situation. So at this point, I'd support it, even though it is costing $30,000 a month for the municipality. It's a big hit for us. So I hope people do keep paying their bills up if possible, but we do have to offer the relief. Thank you.
Any other comments? Will we also continue to suspend shut off for unpaid water bills, I'm assuming, and wastewater? Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, I believe they all go together, so I don't think we could break out part of it. I think it's a fully rounded package, and I think we're wise to go ahead with all of it.
Okay. Leach, should we consider that as one motion and then go into the others, or do you want to do it all as one motion?
Madam Mayor, I could suggest that it could be done as one motion. Now, there will be some bylaws that will need to come forward at the next meeting to actually legally implement. But council could give direction to the package in one motion, I believe, with the bylaws to follow.
We've discussed then the
Madam Mayor?
one. Yes, go ahead, Fiona.
Was the bag tags included in that as well?
At the bottom, we haven't discussed it yet.
Okay, sorry.
That
Thank
was the next thing. I was going to move first of all to the
Madam Mayor,
yes, go ahead, Ramona.
if I may just bring one consideration, an additional consideration to council. Because the bylaw for the final tax rates is coming forward at the next meeting, and if we're delaying the second installment for interim taxes, are we delaying that then until July 15th, or is that staying at June 15th?
Bylaw for the taxes.
And then what does that do to the final tax due dates? I just need some clarification there as to what to put into the bylaw.
Okay, so what do we, with people, I'm assuming, it looks like you all want to go, at least the majority were saying to delay things to June the 15th for the second installment, or July the 15th, excuse me.
And if I may add, there's some technical unfairness there. If that happens, we can delay or not put on penalty and interest, but if you delay the second installment for interim taxes, those people who pay by pre-authorized payment have, a lot of those people have continued to make their pre-authorized payments and have not stopped their pre-authorized payments. Those people who paid by post-dated checks, those checks have been held until June 15th. Unless they were mailed in after we made the decision. So those are some considerations just to make sure that we're clear. The longer you delay the second interim installment, the more closely you're going to start to run into a domino effect with the final taxes.
I would agree because just getting it to, delaying that one, then they're somehow we're getting a lot of echo here. I'm not sure who's not muted, but if we put one off to July 15th, the one that it was normally May, was put off to June. If we put it off to July, that means the next one will be due in September, I believe. Or yeah, and then November. We will be putting them closer together. Because we definitely do have to collect taxes. So I don't know if that's something you want to think about.
Bill Fair. I thought that what we were doing is people that were having a hardship were being deferred. I didn't realize that we were doing a blanket deferral. So, because I know I've talked with people who have automatic withdrawal, and the ones that have that, if it's not a hardship to them, have said continue on with it. So I'm wondering, is there some way that people that are affected that could have a hardship could just make arrangements? Because again, I thought that it was just for people in hardship. I thought the others that could afford it should be doing it.
I believe from Ramona's report, the vast majority were doing it, but that there was a number that weren't. So is there any way that, Ramona, that we can do it such that they have to apply to have it delayed instead of giving everyone an automatic delay?
Yes, that's entirely possible, and that is a little bit easier administratively.
Councillor Fair once more. I'm just thinking that if everyone goes ahead the way they are, if someone doesn't pay, then the assumption would be that they can't pay, and they could possibly be contacted. But I thought by default, if they don't pay it, then they must be in this group, otherwise not.
I must admit that I didn't realize that post-dated checks were not cashed, because I have a post-dated check for the second one, which I was quite happy to have cashed.
Without a conversation with every one of our 4,000 homeowners, we
Yeah.
would be unable to determine what their intention is or what their situation is. So we are unable administratively to do that. We don't have enough staff capacity to talk to each one of our homeowners. If the decision is just to not charge penalty and interest and keep the due date the same, I would recommend that as being your easiest option for us to actually implement.
Councillor Fair again. Councillor Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, yes, I agree with Ramona. I think we should move ahead. The post-dated checks, the automatic withdrawals, you continue on, and if they're not made, then by default they would be there. But I think we should just go ahead with collections as usual, recognizing that there are going to be some having hardships and will not be able to make that deadlines.
We would not charge interest interest on the ones who didn't make it. That's what Ramona is, so that we would keep the June 15th deadline, but anyone who can't make it, there wouldn't be interest charges.
That's my feeling.
The rest, what do you think?
I would agree with that, Fiona.
Thank you, Fiona.
I agree as
Karen?
well.
Oh,
Thanks, Colleen.
yeah, this is Karen. I would agree with that as well.
Thank you, Karen.
And Dennis as well.
Thank you, Dennis. Tom, you're the only one I haven't heard from.
It's unusual. Yes, I'm on side with that.
Okay, so the motion is going to be to leave the due date at June the 15th instead of moving it to July, but just no interest charges for those who don't make it. But that all post-dated checks, et cetera, should be deposited by then. The other part then that Fiona had mentioned too was the bag tags. There was a suggestion that people wanted to say a free month of June or something. In other words, they'd want 4 more bag tags, or they wouldn't have to put a tag on for the month of June or some such thing, because they're saying that staying home, you're generating more garbage. Personally, I wondered because you can't go shopping as much. So anyway, have you had complaints, concerns from people about this?
Madam Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead, Tom.
I think this should probably be put off till, later on in the year. I'm sure everyone still has lots of tags. We really don't know where we're going, so we can deal with this in October, November. I know that personally, I always have lots left over, and a lot of the community groups now put out a plea, and they sort of sort it out amongst their neighbors, the ones that have extra. So I don't think there's a big issue yet. We can deal with it maybe October. I don't think this is pressing right now.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments?
Councillor Fair.
Go ahead, Bill.
I agree wholeheartedly with the deputy mayor. I think we should keep on going, use the same system we've had, and if the end takes us out and that there's an issue, then maybe look at it then. But right now, I think we should try and stay the way we are using tags. And again, I also end up with lots of tags left for neighbors.
Madam Mayor, Fiona?
Go ahead, Fiona.
I agree as well. I really don't see the need to increase it right now. It's something we can look at down the road. The only thing I was concerned about is where do we cut it off with how many tags for the month. Everybody's garbage is going to be different, the amount that they create. So I'd be happy to put this off as well.
Any other comments?
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
it's Jeff.
Yes, Jeff.
I've got some numbers here over April and May of 2020 in comparison to what the tonnages were in 2019. So if you look at April and the first 3 weeks of May in 2019, Green Lane took in 370 tons of garbage from the municipality. This year in 2020 through April and the first 3 weeks of May, Green Lane took in 371 tons of garbage. So that's a 1 ton increase over the year. And you'd also want to take into consideration 125 homes were built in 2019 as well. So if anything, we're seeing the numbers per household go down.
Thank you. So I think the consensus seems to be that we'll just put this off, and if there is a major problem nearer the end of the year, then we could look at it again. But on the whole, we feel, and I think Jeff's statistics support that garbage has not increased. Maybe the odd household has, but they should speak to some of their neighbors for tags, I guess. So, anyone have anything more to say on that? If not, I think Diane can draft a motion, no?
Madam Mayor, maybe one point of clarification around the water and wastewater rates. Was council looking for just extending those one more month based on whatever we're doing right now, June 15th or June 30th, extending that one more month? It's the property taxes that there would be no penalty and interest going forward again? Or was council talking about both water and wastewater and property taxes when it was having that discussion?
Expecting then, council, that water, wastewater, and taxes would all come due June 15th, and that there would just not be a penalty if people went beyond that? Or were you expecting it to be just taxes and we were deferring the water, wastewater?
Madam Mayor, it's Colleen. I was putting all three of those items in the same comment.
Thank you.
Councillor Fair, I was also under that same thinking.
And I see Councillor Roberts shaking her head, yes.
Same for me.
Madam Mayor, I can agree with that, but I think looking ahead, listening to what Ramona has said, I think we need to get a concise message out to our ratepayers. We have very little leeway. We're not going to be able to, there's a wish out there for us to lower the water rates. That's never going to happen. I think we have to, if people don't understand why, we need to really work on that message.
Two is water and wastewater were due May 30th. I actually had the odd person already concerned that their automatic withdrawal was done on the 15th when it wasn't technically due till May 30th. So technically I'm going to get Don to clarify here exactly what we're doing. He's working with Diane right now on a motion.
Madam Mayor. Dennis. Within the report, it also mentions about the water rates being froze at the 2019 level. Are we going to remain at the 2019, or are we actually going to put the water rates where it's suggested by the Watson report at this point?
That's a good question. Don and Diane are trying to work out a motion here, and I know Ramona has sent me some information as well. just so that you're aware of what Ramona has said, she just said that it was 30 days and not all the way till June 15th. Only property taxes were extended till June 15th. Pre-authorized payments must be stopped at least 3 business days prior to withdrawal for those wanting to come off that system. So water is due May 30th. Taxes were till June the 15th. So are we going to leave both of those as they stand and just not charge interest payments for late people? Would that be your wish, that we leave it at May 30th for water, wastewater, and at June 15th for taxes?
Councillor Fair?
Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, that would be my feeling.
Councillor Rowe, I agree.
Yeah, okay. And I see Fiona nodding. Okay. Let's give Diane and Don a minute here to get the motion worked out.
Mayor?
Colleen.
As to Dennis or Councillor Kravitz's question about the actual water rate, I would like to reserve that decision until we actually see the water and the wastewater review. I believe I have a lot of questions around some of the detail that's in there, so I'm very curious to see what some of the answers are.
I would agree that that would make sense, because we've asked staff to bring us a very detailed report, and they're meeting with Gary Scanlon to go over that and see if what we've collected with it frozen, how far out that's going to throw us. But it would be wise, I think, to wait before we make that decision.
Madam Mayor, it's Colleen. Just on that point, just my rough math, when just using the study information, by changing the rates back to the 2019 value, it was around $250,000, $300,000, I think, for an entire year that would imply, but that's not having any actuals in the equation at all. So that's one of the things that I'd be curious to see.
Thank you.
Councillor Fair?
Go ahead, Councillor Fair.
It was my impression that I heard Councillor Rose say that roll it back, but I thought we were just leaving it as is, and so there wouldn't be any rollback. It would be just from wherever the water review is actually done, and we have good information that we would consider moving forward from there. But it was my impression that until that happens, we stay at 19 rates.
Yeah, I don't think she meant roll back. I think she just meant frozen at 2019 rates.
That is correct.
I'm still waiting on Diane and Don. One other aspect was the cutting off of water for unpaid bills. We said we aren't going to charge interest, but we're suggesting, or the idea would be, maybe to July 15th, then there would be no cutoff of water for unpaid bills. That would be the only July 15th one that we would do, but the bills would still come due normally, if that's your wish. You can let me know what you think.
I would agree with that.
Thank you, Dennis. Colleen's okay with that as well.
Bill Fair, I'm also fine with that.
Fiona's shaking her head, yes. She's one I can see.
Karen, I would support that, yep.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Tom. Trying to get all this down so she can read the motion, and we'll need a mover and a seconder once she gets this all down.
Just a comment, Councillor Fair. I think that you know, we're doing a very good-hearted, compassionate move by doing all this. You know, there may be I'm sure there will be the day of reckoning, but I think, as not trying to pat myself on the back too much, or council, but I think that we have reacted very well and very compassionately with what's been going on around us and what situations we've been dealt.
Thank you. I agree. It's been, you know, we've done our very best to try and accommodate people. It is not easy for them out there. Many of them don't have a job at the moment, so. Certainly our businesses have been struggling. I'm going to ask Diane to read the motion as they've drafted it, and then we'll ask for a mover and a seconder. So we'll just give Diane a second here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've prepared a draft motion. Certainly, council can direct or change anything as I read this, if that's all right. Okay. The draft motion reads that council receive report CO 0920 COVID-19 impact as information, and that council approve the following. No interest or penalty charges on unpaid water bills until July the 15th, 2020. Suspension of shutoffs for unpaid water, wastewater accounts until July 15th, 2020. Waiving of penalty and interest charges on unpaid taxes levied until July 15th, 2020. And further, that staff report back to council on these extensions at the regular meeting of June 22nd, 2020.
It was my understanding, I thought we were going to leave everything due on June the 15th and not extend, except that we just weren't going to charge interest and we weren't going to cut off water. But that we were still going to expect all taxes to be paid by June 15th. That was my understanding. Am I incorrect?
Bill Fair, no, I think you're correct.
I felt the same.
I did as well, yes.
Yes. Yeah, they want to know, like, are we just leaving it open-ended as to when, like we're saying taxes are due June 15th, but if someone doesn't pay their taxes, we're not penalizing them. Is there a date, an end date to when we're going to stop not penalizing them? That we're leaving it quite vague in that sense. So does anyone have any suggestions as to what we should be doing there? Or should the motion just read that we expect all taxes and water things to be paid June 15th, but that we will suspend to July 15th interest charges? Unpaid taxes or water bills.
Bill Fair, yes, I agree that way.
Sounds good to me, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Again, so I think there should just be one statement. Sorry. Yeah, there was one suggestion made that has come through that we are not charging interest to July 15th, but after that, we would charge interest, but maybe at a lower rate than normal, if we feel there's a need. And that would come back as a report to our another council meeting. So I think we're getting close to having the motion ready. to try and read the motion again. Hopefully it'll be what we have agreed to.
Madam Mayor, again, I've prepared a draft motion for council's consideration. The motion reads that council receive report CO 0920 COVID-19 impact as information, and that water, wastewater bills remain due on May the 30th, tax bills remain due on June the 15th, 2020, and further that no interest be charged on either bill until July the 15th, 2020, and further that staff report back to council on these extensions at the regular meeting of council dated June 22nd, 2020, and further that staff be directed to prepare the necessary bylaws for the June 8th meeting of council.
It seems to me clear as to what we were asking for. Do we have someone who would move that motion?
I would move it.
Moved by Bill, seconded?
I'll second
Fiona
it.
seconded. Oh, Karen. Okay, we'll put Karen. I heard Karen and saw Fiona's hand, so go ahead, Karen.
Thanks.
Would you?
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin. That motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're at Director of Infrastructure and Community Services. This is ICS 1120, the Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program. Jeff, would you like to speak to this before we have the motion, or do you want the motion first?
I'll just give a brief description. So the County of Elgin approached the municipality last week about endeavoring in a joint application for vehicle chargers through the ZVIP program. What the ZVIP program does is it pays up to 50% for the installation of car chargers. This particular round of funding would focus on workplaces and light duty fleet. So we are suggesting 5 total units with 2 chargers on each unit. So that would be a total of 10 chargers. Those chargers, it's really up to council where those chargers would be located if council wishes to move forward. But a couple suggestions might be to put 4 chargers at White Station for our fleet in the future should we get electric vehicles, 2 at the fire hall, 2 at the Port Stanley Arena, and 2 at the Office Administration Building on Sunset. So further to that, if council wishes to apply and we're successful in the funding, I would suggest that funding come from the 2021 budget. So
That you had in there was what, $37,500 would be our share?
that's correct. That would be our share of the costs.
Comments? I certainly was excited when I saw this because I think it's the right way to go environmentally, but comments from the rest of you.
Madam Mayor, sitting on the Earth Board and hearing some of their theories, certainly they're in the business of selling electricity, but their belief, and I'm probably reluctant, but I have to agree that electric cars are going to be here a lot faster than most people think they are. So I think even if we're a little premature, we're certainly going to grow into it. It is going to come. So I would support this.
Comments or questions? And Fair?
Yes, just the question I'd have is if this is going to be for our own vehicles in time for the municipality's work vehicles at some time, I noticed there's nothing in the north end at Belmont area on this application. I was wondering if we could put a couple in Belmont. If possible.
We have the earth ones going at Belmont. That was already agreed, but that wasn't for, our own company. That was, or our own staff vehicles. That was for anyone wanting to use it. So I don't know. I think that's why there wasn't one at the Port Stanley Arena. So that's why I believe Mr. Brooks chose the Port Stanley Arena and didn't mention the Belmont one. And we do have crews that work out of the Port Stanley Arena.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
A couple of things I wondered about. Is this extremely time sensitive? I wondered if we could move it out to 2022, because for electric vehicles, even with a municipality, we're talking a lot more money on the purchase to go to electric. So I was just wondering if that's something that could be moved out a ways and see when we actually, rather than being quite as premature like this, if we actually wait until we are getting closer to actually having electric vehicles.
Grant application, though, I would assume, Mr. Brooks can respond, but I would assume it's time sensitive.
Through Mayor Martin, the deadline for the application for this funding is June 11th of 2020. So that's the reason for bringing this forward at this time. We're just trying to take advantage of the grant funding that is available until June.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Fair?
I was just thinking the grant funding, we always have to remember that even though there's some grant funding we're taking advantage of, we're still spending taxpayers' money on this.
Well, actually, when we looked at the budget and I saw the fire chief's car was going to cost more than my electric vehicle that I paid. So things, certainly prices are coming down and vehicles are becoming far more efficient. Having been driving one now for a year, I certainly, the costs, if we get those in, the cost savings are amazing because there's no servicing and I have no, there's just the electric charge, and that's not costing me more than a light bulb left on all year round.
Madam Mayor, I'm in favor of making the grant application.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Anyone else? Councillor Roberts, you're shaking your head yes? Thank you. Tom is as well. Dennis is as well. Karen, we can't see your head. What's your thoughts?
Just a quick question for Jeff. What was the grant portion that was being paid?
The grant funding would cover 50% of the cost. So the grant portion would cover the municipality's cost would be 37,500, and the grant funding would be 37,500.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I'll support that.
And
so for clarification, Madam Mayor, I am looking to submit the application for 10 charging units as per the report.
that was my understanding that that's what people were agreeing to.
And the same locations as noted in the report.
Do the locations have to be finalized at this point, Jeff, or can we discuss that later if there's a concern?
Through Mayor Martin, I believe we can change these locations. We really need to just narrow down how many units that we want to purchase. I believe that we can change these locations in the future. And if we are successful in obtaining grant funding, I can prepare another report to council just to update council, and we can reconsider the locations at that time.
Thank you. Diane's just fixing the motion. It's all right, losing my iPad here. Mr. McClure, you are the most still person on that screen. I hardly would know. I thought it was frozen for a while till you moved your hand once. You sit very still. The rest of us are all moving all over the place.
Motion reads, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that report ICS 1120 Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program Stream 2 be received as information, and that Council direct staff to apply for funding through the Natural Resources Canada NRCan in a joint application with the County of Elgin for a total of 10 charging stations for each corporation, and that Council direct that said expense approximately $37,500 be funded through the 2021 budget, and further that Council confirm the following locations for said charging stations: 4 chargers at White Station, 2 chargers at Port Stanley Fire Hall, 2 chargers at the Port Stanley Arena, and 2 chargers at the Administration Building, 450 Sunset Drive, St. Thomas.
My understanding from Jeff was that we could make the final decision on where later, but I mean, we could approve that now, but it can be changed later. Discussion? If not, I will ask Diane to call the motion.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The motion carries.
We are now moving on to the Director of Asset Management. So AMDS 15-20, the monthly building report. Could you read the motion, please?
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Fair, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report AMDS 1511, April 2020 monthly building report be received as information and filed.
Questions? If not, call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
The motion carries.
We're now moving to the AMDS 1720, the Port Stanley Harbor Breakwater construction. Read the motion, please.
The motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Kravitz, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report AMDS 1720, Port Stanley Harbor Breakwater construction be received as information, and further that Council confirm it wishes to postpone the construction of the small breakwater in the Port Stanley Harbor until such time as the natural hazard review for the Port Stanley Harbor has been completed by Zuzik Inc.
Any questions or concerns?
Councillor Fair,
Go ahead, Councillor Fair.
through the mayor to Lloyd, I believe it would be. I know when we looked at this last year, it was considered as an emergency because the water was high and we needed a breakwater, and there was discussion that it wouldn't interfere with dredging. We considered that. Also, I remember Mr. Perrin said that there was a possibility that it might even be done in the fall. So there's 2 things I'm wondering about. I'm wondering why there was no design or anything done at that point between then and fall. I know it didn't happen, but between then and fall. And the other thing is, this study is only looking at other old information and doing an observation, if you will, of the shore. So it's not dropping water levels anywhere. So we still have the emergency.
Perrin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Fair. Preliminary design work was done enough to seek consultation with some of the agencies that we have to consult with, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, as well as some of the consultation with the Aboriginal groups that we're required to consult with. So that has taken longer than we anticipated. As far as the study, if you go back and review the report, it's not just a desktop study. It's actually going and looking at the existing lake levels as well as elevations in and around the harbor and the bottom of the lake, and then utilizing that to forecast flood uprush. So it's not just taking old study work or old information. Staff are recommending that council postpone this because in the absence of having that study done, there may need to be additional work other than this small breakwater in order to protect the lands that council is currently contemplating for development as part of the harbor secondary plan. So if that is the case, then this smaller breakwater may not necessarily be required.
Mr. Perrin, you also mentioned that the Jersey barriers have been making quite a difference in protecting the property that we were concerned about with the breakwater. And you're also talking about installing long poles to protect the walls from the fish tugs that get bashed around. Is that correct?
Correct, Madam Mayor. So when we knew that the process was being slowed to actually construct the breakwater, we purchased a used Jersey barrier to help protect that shoreline along the east side of the harbor. That seemed to work fairly well. The other issue that we're trying to deal with now is the damage that some of the fish tugs create in those high swell times where they're beating against the West Pier. So in order to do some cursory remediation work to help protect that municipal infrastructure, then we'll be installing hydro poles as piles so that the fish tugs will actually rub and bounce up against those and not create damage to the harbor infrastructure.
Any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, and to call the vote.
Yes.
Councillor Krebitz.
Yes.
Councillor Fair.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes.
And Mayor Martin. The motion carries.
Motion.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that bylaw 2482 be read a first and a second time.
Call the vote.
Councillor Cook.
Yes.
Councillor Krebitz.
Yes.
Councillor Fair.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes.
And Mayor Martin. The motion carried.
Thank you. We have a couple of items that, pardon? I'm sorry, third reading of the bylaw.
Your worship, the next motion, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Krebitz, that bylaw 2482 be read a third time and finally passed. Councillor Cook.
Yes.
Councillor Krebitz.
Yes.
Councillor Fair.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes.
Councillor Rowe.
Yes.
And Mayor Martin. The motion carries.
Thank you. Under new business, we had a couple of things. One, I just thought you should know that we are instituting sort of a soft launch to the parking at the boat launch, the only parking lot that we have open, where the machines are getting put up and it will gradually be functioning again. So we're just doing it as a soft launch at the moment, just so you know that we are going to be charging for parking. It's been free up to this point. The other one is we learned that Wildflowers Farm, we're hoping or planning to have, starting June the 5th, on Friday evenings a farmer's market. They had originally thought about having food vendor trucks, but they realized that's not in, that they don't have the right to do that, and so they're not proposing that now. And I'm going to ask Mr. Perrin if he would speak to this. He's been the one corresponding with them.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We were made aware of the situation through a CTV News story on Saturday evening. The Emergency Control Group talked about that story this morning at our control group meeting, and subsequent to that, staff have gone back and forth with planning staff as well to get an idea whether or not this would be permitted under the existing zoning for the property. One, with respect to the farmer's market, and two, with respect to the food truck idea. With respect to the farmer's market, the site-specific zoning allows for the preparation and sale of food and other products grown, produced on the property, or sourced from local farms. When that zoning was put in place, it was staff's understanding that the intent was that the existing landowner could purchase goods from other farmers in the area and then resell it. A farm market really wasn't contemplated. However, what's being proposed, we feel that council may wish to consider that it's within the spirit of the zoning on the property. So if that is what council's wish is, then staff would not have a concern with the farm market. With respect to the food trucks, that is absolutely not permitted. The municipality's practice is that site-specific zoning has to be in place on a property to allow for a food truck, and this property does not have that. With respect to the farmer's market, we have been in dialogue a fair bit today with the landowner, and they've outlined what their proposal was, and we've shared that with council earlier today. And we've also received word from the St. Thomas Public Health Unit that they don't have concerns with what's being proposed, subject to the operational plan that Wildflowers has put in place for the event.
I think this is probably a good thing, just because of the Horton Street Market not opening, and yet actually Jane Magri said today that they're hearing rumors that maybe they will, that council will change their mind and open it. But so it's all kind of up in the air, but I think it's a good thing to allow this farmer's market to occur. That is just my feeling. What do the rest of you think?
Mayor Martin, it's Colleen.
Colleen?
I don't have an issue with it. I just, I think it is a good thing. It's deemed an essential service. I do believe that there is probably more space, or it's sort of easier to do some social distancing outside of downtown St. Thomas, perhaps. And the vote for or against, I guess, against the St. Thomas issue was 5-4. So it was really basically a tie, I guess. And so there was, 50% of the population wants it, 50% of the, not the population, the council didn't want it. So I think it's worth giving it a try, but for sure it really should be the farmers, the natural produce that's there, as opposed to any other sort of pre-packaged goods, if possible.
They certainly are talking about local goods. Dennis Kravitz, you'd like to speak.
Yes, thank you. I actually agree with the concept that the Magris are proposing. I've had a chance to review the documentation that they sent out. They put a lot of thought into the layout of the operation to practice social distancing. They've been in contact with Southwestern Public Health in regards to the operation of starting this farm market. So I would support them. And the issue with the food trucks, I agree that they should not be on site, as it's not permitted by our bylaw or our zoning. So I think the way they are approaching, I think it's a very good approach they have, and I would support their operation. Thank you.
Anyone else have comments?
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead, Tom.
I've attended, had a conference here once, and it's actually an ideal location. Certainly all in favor of buying local. You know, and my concern is this has happened really fast. I think in one of the emails, they said that they come up with this plan in 48 hours. I'm not concerned that this will be successful. My concern is what if they're too successful, which would lead to the same problem, and the reason St. Thomas is balking, the crowds. And then I'm concerned, like, what if they have a night and they get 2 inches of rain in half an hour? And I'm thinking of, you know, to my knowledge, Parkinson is on grass. I'm not trying to throw a pail of cold water on it. I wish them success. I'd like to see us try this and see how it works. But I think this has to be kind of a trial basis. Certainly, I wish them well, but, you know, what assurances we have, you know, we don't want to see a case where people are out there rubbing shoulder to shoulder.
Thank you.
Councillor Fair?
Go ahead, Councillor Fair.
I agree with Deputy Marks also. I think if we emphasize the fact that this is not a long term, this is just a venture that's an experimental at this point, and if it grew or became much stronger, then we would deal with it. But I think we should make sure that they understand that this is a temporary experimentation.
That's what they're trying to do, is to just compensate, because many of these local farms, people have already planted their crops ready for sale, and then with the Horton Street Market just suddenly not opening, they have no place to sell them. A lot of people do not have on-farm stores. So I think they're meaning it really as a temporary measure. But I think it's a great idea to keep it going, and I think it was one of the things the province said, that it was an essential service to provide fresh food for people. So I think they're doing something very helpful. And they have good plans for trying to space people out, and that's a logistical thing that they're going to have to work out. Do we have someone who'd like to move that we agree to allow this to occur?
This is Karen. I'll move for that one.
Thank you, Karen.
Second that, Fiona.
Thank you, Fiona.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
You know, pressing against this, but are we putting some controls over it? Are we going to review this in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time? Evaluate it or all? Like, you know, and by doing that, maybe we can actually help improve things. The last thing we do, it's just like people on the beach. We have rules, but if the rules get broken in society, you know, again, I think in their words, they come up with this plan under 48 hours. So, and obviously they've been very, very busy this afternoon and come up with the good ideas that we're supporting now. But I wish them success.
Would you like to speak to that? I thought with it being on private property, as long as it was conforming to the zoning, that, you know, if we're stretching the zoning, that we really aren't policing it or evaluating, but you can clear me up on that. Go ahead, Mr. Barron.
Madam Mayor, I think staff's position would be that we're in a gray area with what the zoning really is. And it is a little bit of a stretch. However, given the spirit of what they're proposing, you know, it might be reasonable for council to consider this as a trial to be, you know, looked at over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then if they choose that they want to continue on, then possibly that they undertake a zoning amendment for the property to be absolutely clear that this is a permitted use. Because this is, talking with Mr. McComb today, staffer of the position, that this really wasn't the intent when the zoning was put in place. It was to allow for agritourism, to allow for them to sell the goods that they produce on the property, as well as if they had, we'll say, partnerships with other producers where they could bring products in from another producer and sell it in their store. Then that was how we envisioned this venture taking place. Not to have other vendors come onto the property and sell their wares, which is what's being proposed as a true farmers market.
Yes, and I will say they're starting June 5th. So how many weeks would we want to give them? How many events before we evaluate it, just so that Diane can put it in the motion? Mr. Perrin, a suggestion?
I would defer to Mr. McClure too for his input, but I would suggest probably 4 weeks, and then if they choose that they think that this is a viable alternative, then at that point they should be submitting an application for a zoning amendment. But maybe Mr. McClure could speak to that as well.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would agree with essentially everything that Mr. Perrin has said to date. I mean, essentially, the use itself, it is that gray area. It comes down to the municipality enforcing the bylaw, and then whether or not the use that is occurring on the site is, again, meeting with the spirit of what the zoning permits. So ultimately, I guess if what they have proposed is kind of reaching beyond the bounds of what was kind of in the spirit or to kind of defined in the bylaw, then it could be something that the municipality at that time could look at. Requesting that there's an amendment to the bylaw to actually go forward with what is actually occurring on the site.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. You suggested 4 weeks. Do you mean 4 of them, 4 weeks that they run it, or 4 weeks from today?
Well, I was going to suggest 4 weeks of them operating the market. That gives them a bit of a honeymoon period to see how well this goes, if there's interest and take up both from vendors as well as the public. So.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, my sound isn't very good tonight, but I'm very impressed with Wildflowers. As far as management, I think it's superior, and if anyone can pull it off, they can. My concern, we're kind of bending the rules, and we're under pretty extreme circumstances, so I'm fine with that. But when you set a precedent, we don't want someone else down the road that doesn't have these superior management skills, and then we get ourselves in a bit of a bind because we allow someone a bit of a break, and then they demand it. That's where my caution comes from. I've been to their place, and I'm very impressed by the operation. I have no qualms with that. So if anybody's going to pull it off, they will, and I certainly wish them well.
I think with Mr. Perrin's idea that we allow them to operate 4 weeks, and then we ask them if it's successful and they want to continue, they apply for a zoning amendment. Any other comments from anyone?
Madam Mayor, it's Colleen.
Go ahead, Colleen.
Just knowing that there is a delay for the zoning amendments, so if you get to the end of June and it's successful and they want to apply, are they then allowed to operate for the sort of the balance of the season until the zoning gets approved? Zoning amendment gets approved?
Assume that's at council's discretion, or I would assume we would let them continue if it's very successful and they're going to apply for a zoning amendment. But Mr. Leach, do you want to jump in here?
Well, that would be a practical problem, right? They're successful and then they're going to have to shut down. The other consideration is if this is truly just a temporary for 1 year, while the Horton market, presumably COVID is gone by this time next year, or being dealt with, and the Horton market is reopened, they may not want to operate this. So what council may want to do is give them till the end of the summer, say August, to operate, and then at that point require them to make an application if they see this as being a permanent operation beyond this year. That's one option. In the meantime, they operate. If you're going to require them to make an application at the end of June and then shut down, there's probably not necessarily a point in going to a lot of work for 4 weeks. It is a trial, but that may not be as attractive either to the vendors.
Because certainly the vendors that they're going to be bringing in are going to want some guarantees that they're going to be able to sell. I thought Mr. Leach's suggestion was a good one, that we allow a trial for this year till the end of the summer. And that then they can decide if they want to go permanent, and they would apply for a zoning bylaw amendment if they want to go permanent, and if they don't apply. What are your thoughts?
Councilor Fair?
Go ahead, Bill.
I think that was an excellent suggestion by Mr. Leach. I think it makes sense. It's a seasonal market. Let's do the season.
Thank you. Other comments?
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I think that's our job, and I think Mr. Leach has made a very practical suggestion. Again, I wish him well.
Thank you. Giving Diane a chance now to get this down as a motion. We did have a mover and a seconder.
Councillor Kravitz?
Go ahead, Dennis.
They were proposing to have this market until the October 10th. That was what they were advertising or already trying to do. So the end of the summer doesn't work, and it doesn't work with the harvest season either. So if we are going to permit to the end of the summer, I think we should be extending it to the entire this season, not the summer.
I would agree with you, Dennis, that it should be to the end of the market season.
I would agree with that also, Fiona.
Thank you, Fiona.
Councilor Fair, I would also agree. When I said seasonal, I guess my season at the end of August is not a full season.
No.
I agree.
Thank you. Poor Diane's having a hard time tonight with all these unusual motions. Ready? The mover, I believe, was Karen, and the seconder was Fiona.
Madam Mayor, again, I've prepared a draft that council can certainly direct me otherwise after they hear it. Moved by Councillor Cook, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that council confirms that the agritourism zoning permits the proposed farm market on the Magri property on Fruit Ridge Line, and further that council approve the market on a trial basis until the end of the market season 2020, and further that should the market be successful, the Magris could make application for a zoning bylaw amendment to move forward.
Sounds exactly what we have been saying, I believe. Any questions? If not, I'll have Diane call the vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
And Mayor Martin. The motion carries.
Just one other note under new businesses, just so that you know that we're going to be opening our skate parks. Mr. Brooks is working on some signage and getting, I think Mr. McDonough was helping print signage and getting it laminated, and they're going to get them up and going to get the things down. We'd had a request to do so from a gentleman in Belmont And so we are definitely doing it. They will be open in the next day or two, or by the weekend for sure. Is there any other new business that anyone needs to bring up?
Councillor Fair,
Yes, Bill?
through you to Jeff, I'm just wondering, I noticed that the municipalities around us, especially London, have cut back drastically on their labor force. I'm wondering, are we looking at that, or are we going to, in spite of the various shutdowns, continue on with full staffing?
Through Mayor Martin to Councillor Fair. Right now we have a full complement of full-time staff working. As you know, back in April, we reduced our Parks and Rec staffing down to 2 full-time individuals, and 9 were on declared emergency leave. So we did reduce our staff back in April, but we've since brought those individuals back to work to complete some of the work that council assigned staff to complete, such as hanging baskets, flower beds, Hoffus Park, the walkways, etc. So right now we are working with the staff that we have. We need everybody that we do have working in order to get all the essential work completed, as well as some of the additional work that council has assigned. Typically this time of year we have 9 to 10 student workers working on the Parks and Rec department. Right now we only have 5 working. If the beaches were to be reopened, we will need to bring back some additional staff. So in the Parks and Rec department particularly, we are down a few numbers. The wastewater department typically hires 2 students, as well as the roads department, and we haven't hired any students in those 2 departments due to COVID. So right now we're kind of working with, we need, basically what I'm saying is we need all the full-time staff on board.
Yes, and even with the idea of maybe eventually opening the splash pad, or shortly, we our emergency control group are trying to figure out, how that's going to be staffed as well for safety.
Thank you.
Any other thing under new business that anyone wants to bring up? If not, I'll ask Diane to read the motion to go into closed. There will be a pause after we vote on that to give her a chance to take us off live streaming.
Motion reads, Madam Mayor, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Roberts, that council proceed into closed session at 9:24 p.m. in order to address a matter pertaining to closed session minutes, solicitor-client privilege, security of property, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land.
Vote.
Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Kravitz?
Yes.
Councillor Fair?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councillor Roberts?
Yes.
Councillor Rowe? And Mayor Martin? Yes. The motion carries.
Give Diane a moment here.